We just got another big trailer for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment in the September Nintendo Direct, giving us a release date of November 6th. That's less than 2 months away. But with the game about to be playable at Tokyo Game Show in just 2 weeks, we're bound to get even more info soon. So before then, it's time I dive in for another analysis of the game. Ritz, grab that magnifying glass, because it's time to go through and uncover everything we can from this latest trailer. First up, let's update our list of confirmed playable characters. We have Zelda, Rauru, Minoru, the Sage of Water Zora, the Sage of Fire Goron, the Sage of Wind Rito, the Sage of Lightning Gerudo, Sonia, as this trailer actually confirms that she's playable. Between the trailer and the key art, we can see that she fights wielding a bow, and what looks to be an arrow made of pure light. There's also this Brave Korok. Their actual name is currently unknown, but the trailer narration refers to them as a Brave Korok. They wear a scarf and a second leaf on its head, kind of like a hat, and they look to wield a Forest Dweller's sword. But they're clearly important as they even appear on the key art. We also have a new Gerudo warrior, who shows up during the Sync Strike with the Sage of Lightning Gerudo. She wields a Gerudo Claymore. We also have this Rito warrior, who shows up in the short Japanese trailer, seen performing a Sync Strike with the Sage of Wind Rito. They look to fight using one-handed weapons, as we see them using a feathered edge. They definitely have a lot of personality, given this pose they strike during the Sync Strike animation. We also have a mysterious Hylian, which we can only see in this one clip in the trailer in the UI. As we can see, the player can swap to them, but we don't really know anything about this character, and we don't see them anywhere else. Who are they? And of course, we have the mysterious Construct, who was first seen at the end stinger of the last trailer. We get a little bit of gameplay of them flying around through the sky, battling against a Frostgleok, and also of them diving down into the depths. But we get our best look at them in the key art. They have a sword in their right hand, and a shield is attached to their left arm, and they wear an ancient-styled tunic and a scarf. Based on the energy hair flowing out of the hood and the general facial design, I'm confident this is the spirit of the hero given a body, aka Link, but possibly not called Link. I no longer think this is tied to Fi, sadly, but it could still be connected to the ancient heroes aspect, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. Either way, it's clear that they're a very important character to this whole thing, since they're one of the focus characters for the Japanese Special Edition release, which also suggests the Korok might be pretty important too. As for Agent Calamity, it was only really Link and Terrako to get this kind of attention. Those are our confirmed characters, but will there be more? Well, with the second Rito and Gerudo, we can assume there will be a second Zora and a Goron as well. That would bring us up to 15 total playable characters so far, versus Age of Calamity's 18 playable characters in the base roster, or 21 if you count the multiple playstyles for Link and Zelda. So we're actually already getting pretty close to Age of Calamity's base roster. Speaking of different playstyles and weapons, according to the eShop page, if you have save data from Age of Calamity, you'll get a High Guard's Claymore, and save data from Tears of the Kingdom will get a High Guard's Sword. But I'm not sure who's going to get to use these weapons though. Maybe the mysterious Construct to have playstyles for one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons, and spears, just like Link did? Next up, let's talk about Sync Strikes. These are the team-up abilities that we've seen before that I covered in my previous analysis. According to the trailer narration, depending on the pair, Sync Strikes can deal high damage or have a variety of other effects, so their mechanics will change depending on the characters that group up. When characters are able to Sync Strike, we can see it on their status icon on the left. Their UI gets outlined in blue, and when they're ready to Sync Strike, their icon will glow with a small arrow animation. And now let's go over the Sync Strikes that we've seen thus far as of this trailer. We have Zelda and Rauru, Zelda and the Sage of Wind Rito, Zelda and the Sage of Water Zora, Zelda and the Sage of Lightning Gerudo, Zelda and the Sage of Fire Goron, Zelda and Minoru's Construct, Zelda and Sonia, the Sage of Lightning Gerudo and the second Gerudo warrior, the Sage of Wind Rito and the second Rito warrior, and Minoru and Rauru. And going off the last trailer, we've also seen the Sage of Fire Goron with the Sage of Wind Rito, as well as Rauru and Sonia. That's quite a lot. And it makes me wonder if we really will get every character with any character getting sync strikes, or if they're just set to very specific pairings. Moving on, let's talk about the Zonai Devices. This trailer confirms what I theorized in the previous trailer, that any character can utilize Zonai Devices with the press of the ZR button. We can also see that they rely on energy wells to use the devices. The specific devices that we get to see are rockets here in the UI, the hydrant, the fan, the shock emitter, and the flame emitter back in the previous trailer. Unlike the Sheikah runes of Age of Calamity, the Zonai Devices don't look to essentially be extra attacks. They look to be more like items that are picked up and can be dropped and interacted with. We can also see that multiple Zonai Devices can be used together as well. We see a shock emitter mixed with the fan makes for a big electric tornado. We'll likely see some other Zonai Devices, like the frost emitter, but I'm unsure just how many will be usable by everyone, since I'm sure many of them are going to be exclusive to Minoru and her moveset, as we even see her use the small wheel as her run animation. Now, let's take a look at some standard gameplay, since we finally have a look at it in action, including with all the UI. Of course, in the upper left we have health and the special gauge, then energy for Zonai Devices, ZR to use a Zonai Device, which seems to replace the unique action button from Age of Calamity, right on the D-pad for what might be opening up items, left on the D-pad is a compass icon, the same as in Tears of the Kingdom, which opens up the map. So maybe this button opens up the map for a greater view. And if that's true, then these maps might get pretty big, possibly even bigger than the ones in Age of Calamity. Further down on the left are the player-controlled characters, with the ability to swap between them by pressing up and down on the D-pad. In one particular clip, we see UI displayed for Zelda's combo string. This might be some sort of assist mode or tutorial, showing on screen what your combo options are, and lighting them up as you use them. Zelda, with the main weapon we've seen her use, at this point in the game, has a kit that looks like this. She can press the strong attack button X for one attack, regular attack button Y, then press and hold X 2 times for another combo, Y then X, Y then X 2 times, Y 4 times then X, or just a full combo of Y 5 times. Going off of Zelda's late combo strings from Age of Calamity for comparison, I would say Zelda likely still has some combos to unlock here, and this isn't the final set. During her attack combo, we also see a quick prompt to press the X button to recall appear. Is this the reason X is pressed twice in this combo? Well, it doesn't look like recall actually gets used, and it's only after the prompt goes away that we see the X button in the combo string light up a second time. We see from the rest of the gameplay that this combo string UI is not always up and active though, so it's definitely some sort of setting. Rauru has an attack where he rushes forward, pressing the X button repeatedly, which appears on the screen, even if the rest of the combo string itself doesn't. The B button is once again used to dodge attacks, and holding ZL allows you to guard. There are also some sort of camps kept in keeps. We can see them on the map during the split screen gameplay. Not really sure what they do, or if they're exclusive to split screen. We also see one in the Japanese version of the trailer in the middle of the keep. But what does it do? Maybe you can swap out whatever characters you have in the current scenario by stopping off at the camp? There's also a Korok standing up here, which leads me to believe we'll be looking for Koroks during scenarios again to collect Korok seeds, just like in Age of Calamity. Anyway, weak point gauges are indeed back, and we even get to see them here in gameplay. Also, from the gameplay we see, we can surmise that the first few playable characters seem to be Zelda, Rauru, and Minoru. The split screen footage has Rauru at level 5, though we don't see Minoru's level. Sonia is probably very early as well, but not here in this specific battle. Finally, in her first gameplay clip, Zelda is on some sort of cooldown. In Age of Calamity, there was a cooldown before Sheikah runes could be used again, so maybe this is a cooldown for Zonai Devices. Moving on, let's talk about the enemies. We see a lot of different enemies in this trailer, many of which are returning from Tears of the Kingdom, and also a lot of brand new ones as well. So let's start off with the returning enemies. We get a look at some silver bokoblins and moblins. And I think at this point, we've seen all the color variants of bokoblins and moblins, including the skeletal versions. Notably though, these ones that we see here are gloomed variants at that. So even those stronger ones are here too. We also get a look at some Lizalfos, some electric, some fire, and silver in this trailer. All the variants are very likely here as well. There's also Frost Peblets, which likely mean the other Peblets are here, Gibdos, more Soldier Constructs and Captain Construct variants, Armored Bokoblins from Tears of the Kingdom, which are probably going to be harder to defeat, Little Froxes down in the depths, Hinoxes, including Gloom versions, Gerudo Soldiers, who likely become allies later on when the Sage of Lightning joins Rauru, an Igneo Talus, which likely means the other variants of Taluses are back as well, a Frost Gleeok, which we see during a flying section, implying it may not be battled the same way as other enemies, and a Gloom Spawn, which raises the question if they'll spawn a Phantom Ganon. He'll very likely look different if they do, since the Phantom Ganon in Tears of the Kingdom is based on his mummified undead look, which he shouldn't have here in this game. In fact, something I only realized while editing this video is that the trailer theme is actually a new rendition of the battle theme against Phantom Ganon from Tears of the Kingdom. So it's actually incredibly likely we're going to be fighting him here too, and that's where this song plays. Now let's talk about the new enemies we have here. First are these cloudy gloom enemies, which I mentioned in my previous analysis. And it seems I was right, that they're new common enemies, as we have several clips and screenshots showing off hordes of them getting battled. What's most interesting about them, though, is that they seem to possess other soldiers on the battlefield. See these Hylian soldiers here? They're actually hit by Zelda's attack. And that's because if we look closely, we can see they're radiating this red, gloomy aura. It's like they're bringing back the concept of turncoat soldiers from the original Hyrule Warriors, but here, it's caused by some sort of gloom possession. It wouldn't surprise me if at some point in the game's story, we had to fight against Sonia being controlled by gloom like this before she dies. You know, just to make it really tragic. We also have these new muddy versions of older enemies, like Bokoblins and Hinoxes, just covered in mud. Maybe they're immune to damage until they get hit with water, which would give characters fighting with water, like the Sage of Water Zora, an advantage. Maybe the elemental abilities are going to play a bigger role this time around. Next we have this new Goma-like boss, which is vaguely similar to the Marbled Rock Goma. It has the Calamity Eyeball and Ganon's facial hair, as well as 2 flaming arms and at least 4 additional flaming limbs. It sits atop a large marbled rock, and it can cause flaming rocks to rain down like meteors. There's also some sort of dancing creature. It looks almost like a dancer wearing red, with 2 long tentacle arms that end in flower-like openings. It has bright red hair like Ganondorf, and some sort of red pants too, but it definitely seems like a monstrous creature. Well, we get another look at what might be the same creature in the Japanese trailer, and it might actually be some new version of Muktarok, as it attacks using balls of mud. The last enemy to mention is this small glimpse of another boss creature with a large eyeball and Ganon-like hair. At first, I thought this could be the same as the Goma-like one, but this one has larger horns and what looks like tusks, so it may not be the same one at all. We've talked about playable characters, various gameplay mechanics, the game's UI during gameplay, and all sorts of enemies. But now, rather than a frame-by-frame breakdown of every single clip in the trailers, I want to start looking through some very specific scenes in the trailer that stand out as interesting, and may even be hiding something. The first of which is this scene of the Gloom Spawn. The Gloom Spawn seems to be appearing just outside of Hyrule Castle, or nearby at least. And the myriad enemies we see a couple of clips later are also all outside of the castle. I believe this whole clip is right when Ganondorf steals the Secret Stone from Sonia and truly becomes the Demon King. We can even see a glimpse of the giant blood moon in the background. This would make the most sense for when monsters would spawn at Hyrule Castle to take it over, since the royals are forced to flee. And notably, all of the enemies spawned here are gloomed versions, which we usually only see down in the depths. And back on the stairs, we can see gloom spreading and covering the ground. I think further up these steps are where the Gloom Spawn are, while down the steps over here are where this army of monsters are forming. Next we have this clip with the little Korok, which looks to take place somewhere down in the Farin region, going off the large palm trees. His special attack involves throwing a bunch of elemental fruits at his foes, then making them explode with a large strike. Next, we see Minoru down in the depths. As she's fighting these little Froxes, we can see a couple of Poe Souls over on the left. So, in addition to rupees, we can collect Poe Souls as another form of currency, which implies that bargainer statues are in the game as well, and that they'll have something of value. Next is this clip with a burst of gloom energy, and I believe this ties into the earlier clips, from the moment when Ganondorf steals the Secret Stone and becomes the Demon King, just before all the enemies appear, as I mentioned earlier, as this is Hyrule Castle after all. Basically, it's a different glimpse of a similar cutscene from Tears of the Kingdom. Next we have this clip of Zelda, Rauru, and Minoru shielding their eyes. There's a strong wind blowing through, which is why they're shielding their eyes. But who is this character next to Zelda? She's dressed just like Zelda and Sonia, so that means she's likely someone else who resides in Hyrule Castle. She has long brown hair, and she's holding some sort of green book. So I wonder if she's some sort of royal advisor, like this era's equivalent of Impa, and of course the age-old question, could she be playable? Next, we have a short clip of Minoru in the depths. She's holding a flashlight and is trying to activate some sort of gate, but it denies her entry. Could this lead to that mysterious construct that we've been seeing? Speaking of, next we have a clip of this flying entity into the Frostgleok fight. There's a lot to take in here. The first clip is much more cinematic, and likely from a full-on cutscene, which is of this Zonai device taking off and soaring through the sky above a massive battlefield. The skies are red from a blood moon, but all we can really see below are the fires after a battle. It then cuts to the Frostgleok, up near a sky island, so this is very high up in the sky. And going off the light of this device, it seems to be the same flying device. We can see it has wings and fans fused to it, but more on this specific device soon. What I actually want to draw attention to here in this clip is the Korok riding the device. Seriously, what a little hero. So, does this mean characters can be picked up and flown around? This cutscene with the Gleok, notably, doesn't feel like a pure cutscene like the previous clip did. It feels more like a dynamic cutscene that we would see during combat, like during a special attack. So is this some sort of very special attack for aerial combat? Or could there be more to this? I do think there's more going on here. I think it might be important that this Korok is the one here, because this flying Zonai device gets a closer look in a later clip. And it's the mysterious construct that we've seen a few times now, who's even right next to Zelda on the key art. I've already talked a bit about this Korok and this construct, but there's clearly a lot more going on with the two of them. The Korok is likely the only one small enough to ride on their back. In this clip, we see this construct transform from a flying form back to their humanoid form, as they dive deep into the depths. So are they just able to fly as part of their main gameplay and dive down whenever they want? There's a lot going on with them. The last clip I want to talk about is this clip from the Japanese trailer, which has Zelda and Sonia standing in a field of Sundelions, watching the petals blow away in the wind, and it seems very connected to the clips from the previous trailer. Okay, we're almost done here, but there were also several official screenshots released that I want to go over, that cover scenes that weren't in any of the trailers. First are these two screenshots of Zelda and Sonia, set outside of Hyrule Castle, again in the field of Sundelions. One is set during the day, with Zelda curiously approaching Sonia while the Queen inspects the flowers. The other looks to be at sunset, with Zelda looking hopefully at Sonia. Perhaps this will be a regular meeting place for the two to talk to each other. Or perhaps every scene we've had with these two in these flowers are all from one long cutscene, where they're here long enough for the sun to set. Next is this screenshot of Ganondorf in the desert, sitting on a rock. There are 4 Gerudo in this screenshot of a cutscene, with each of them kneeling. One holds Ganondorf's blade in its scabbard, one fans Ganondorf with a Korok frond, and the other 2 seem to be reporting to Ganondorf, and were previously seen in Tears of the Kingdom. Although they were not directly named back then, these are the twin Rova, Koume and Kotake. It's good to see that we're likely going to learn a lot more about them this time around. There's even key art of Ganondorf, likely during this scene. This comes from the Japanese website, where he's listed alongside other characters being Zelda, Rauru, Sonia, and Minoru. Now, I have to admit, I'm curious. Ganondorf getting key art and being listed alongside these other characters, could he be playable at some point in the story? His weapon is even a focus in his artwork, just like the other playable characters. So maybe there's a side story that features Ganondorf as the main playable character, showing his perspective of the war, which could also feature the Twin Rova as playable allies for him. Or, well, maybe not. It would be really cool, don't get me wrong, and I wanted to entertain the idea, but I do think this is just because he's the primary antagonist to the whole game. Next up is this screenshot of Zelda holding her Zonaite weapon. Based on her clothes and the look on her face, I suspect this is at the beginning of the game, when she's given this weapon as a means to defend herself, and she's holding it for the very first time. Next is a screenshot of Minoru's construct, with Minoru controlling it from behind. I think her playstyle will not only involve using a series of Zonai devices to move and attack, but with some sort of special ability, she can summon the construct to fight for her as she commands it like a puppeteer. There's also this screenshot of Minoru fighting in the depths. She's riding on a stone slab with big wheels fused to it, each with spiked iron balls attached to them, and she controls it using a steering stick. Finally, we have a screenshot of Zelda and Rauru during gameplay. Both of them are glowing blue, with an indicator below them that they're able to use a sync strike. It's the same indicator from the gameplay UI, and we can see when they stand close together, the indicators point towards each other. And with that about does it for my second analysis of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. There was a lot to go over here, and there are still so many questions. Who is the mysterious construct? Can every character sync strike with each other? What are these Gleeok battles like? Will Sonia still be playable in any sort of side content after she dies? Who is this little Korok? Surely, all the questions will be answered in due time, as the game comes out on November 6th. Less than 2 months away now. That's honestly way sooner than I was expecting. But I'm very excited, and we'll be seeing even more of the game soon enough, as it'll be at Tokyo Game Show in just a couple of weeks. But what do you all think? Did I miss anything that you think is important? Do you have your own answers to these various questions? Let me know down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, and of course, subscribe and consider becoming a channel member for plenty more gaming goodness from me, including plenty more on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and other games from the recent Nintendo Direct. Until next time, farewell everyone. Special thanks to my channel members at the Co-Star Luma tier: Kiss My Flapjack, Game Explain, Thale Caesar, Azure Pip, Swiftjar, and Simpsons703.